Thank you, David. And I truly, truly need to recognize David Karst and his family, and then, of course, entire Milwaukee County GOP. We have developed a wonderful friendship over the years. We have worked on the Serbs for Trump, and Serbs for Senator Ron Johnson, and Serbs for many candidates that have been representing us. But again, before I go on, good evening, Milwaukee. I hail from Florida, and I was hoping to bring you some sunshine, but apparently I brought you snow tonight. But it is such a pleasure to be back here. I want to thank my Serbs, of course, for putting together this wonderful event, as they always do with the Milwaukee County GOP. We are going to keep doing this. We have a crucial election coming up. And I will tell you, not only in the United States, but the Europeans and the rest of the world are looking up here because they know that we are the last battle. We don't get another go at this. This is it, 2024. We must elect President Trump, and we also must elect the line of candidates who will fight the leftist, rigid ideology that has weaponized the government against our people and against our duly elected president. We must bring him back, and I know who will be the greatest fighter alongside our president. He was the former ambassador to Germany, and of course, acting DNI. But I always introduce him as my great friend and as somebody who carries the favorite title, a special envoy for Serbia and Kosovo. He has done tremendous work, and we often talk about this. Is Ambassador Richard Grenell really biased towards Serbs? No. The Serbs have also experienced the demonizing that is happening against the conservatives. We are actually fighting the same battle. Serbs have experienced this in the 1990s, and in fact, on Monday comes an anniversary of NATO bombing, Clinton-led NATO bombing against Serbia. So this is a fabulous occasion to not only commemorate that terrible, terrible event, but to also make sure that something like this never happens again, and that we make sure that American Serbs, with our American allies and all of our Christian Orthodox allies and other Christians in this nation, fight against the evils that are actually against our children and against our future generations. So I thank you again for being here. And now, my dear friend, Ambassador Richard Grenell.
Thank you so much. Between the Milwaukee County GOP and my Serb friends, I feel like I'm home. It feels really good to be here. There's so many friends that I see here. You know, I say all the time, Milwaukee is such an amazing city. I could live here if the weather was better. But I don't like the weather. But I love the people, and I love your architecture. This is a great city, and I'm really excited to come back and spend 10 days here during the convention. I hope you're planning for the best Republican convention ever in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's going to be amazing. You are the host. David, you're doing an amazing job leading this county. Thank you for all your work. Olga, thank you for all of your commitment to Serbs for Trump. It's a national group. If you know Serbs that want to be involved, talk to Olga. It's a great group, and they've supported President Trump. I want to make sure that I take some time to take questions and answers. So get your questions together. I like tough questions. You don't have to be nice. You can be very pushy with your questions. I don't mind. I want to have an open and a transparent conversation. I think I first want to start by just telling people that I'm generally a positive person. I look at the world and I find a positive view in everything. I have to say, though, I've moved into the pissed off phase of my life. I can't believe what's happened to our country. And in many ways, it's our fault. In many ways, it's our fault because we've watched for 20 years as the left has completely taken over the media, our schools, academia, Hollywood, and now corporate America. If you want to be a part of the counterculture, the counterculture was big in the 60s. The counterculture is big with minorities. If you want to be part of the group that is pushing against the big man, that's pushing against the system, the elites, then you are a Republican. Because the Republican Party under Donald Trump is not the party of Mitt Romney. Hear, hear. The Republican Party of Donald Trump has lots of color and lots of people who are working class and lots of people who are first and second generation Americans. One of the best things for me is to hear from first and second generation Americans why they came to America. They came here to leave fascism and totalitarianism. They know what it's like when the media is the mouthpiece of the ruling party. They know what it's like when the academic institutions bully dissenting voices. They know what it's like when you're shouted down and you don't get to say what you believe because the elites say your voice doesn't matter. This is the Republican Party of today. We are the party of the working class. We are the party of first and second generation Americans. We are the party of people who love America. If you want to apologize for America, that is not the Republican Party. Now, I'm not suggesting that we are perfect. We have problems in America, but when we focus on these problems, we solve them. We know how to say, this is a problem, let's get to it. I'm horrified when I look at my nephews and nieces and I hear what they're saying coming out of college. What in the world is going on? We're sending our kids to college as conservatives who love capitalism, and they're coming home hating capitalism. It's a terrible situation. When you look at our open border, make no mistake, the Democrats want an open border. They know this border is wide open. They know people are jumping in front of the line. They know people are coming here and getting a whole bunch of freebies. They know that, and they want that. Make no mistake, when the Democrats get the House and the Senate and the White House, they're going to make all of these illegals who jump the line citizens. They're going to get handed citizenship, and then they're going to get handed a voting card. This is their plan. They're not dumb. We've got to stop pretending like they don't think that the border is open. Of course they know the border is open. It's exactly their plan. We've got to start calling it out. And I'll tell you one thing, U.S. citizens are the most generous people in the world. Never back down from someone who says, if you want a closed border, or you want people to wait in line to become a citizen, that you're somehow mean-spirited. Don't ever fall for that. You look at what America is doing, and we allow 1 million people a year to legally become U.S. citizens. You go through the process, and you can become a U.S. citizen. 1 million people a year. No other country in the world allows that. No other country lets 1 million people a year legally come in. But we do. We also have a system in this country where you write checks when there's a humanitarian disaster. If there's an earthquake in another country, you write a check, a personal check. You give to NGOs, and your government gives through taxes. That doesn't happen in other countries. Do you want to know what the Europeans do when there's a disaster? They say, that's terrible. I hope my government is giving money to that. We have a history in this country of being very generous. Don't ever let anyone tell you you're mean-spirited for wanting to close the border. You are not mean-spirited because you are fighting for the people who are waiting in line. Try going to the grocery store when there's a long line at the grocery store and just taking your cart and jumping in front of the line. See how that goes over. Or how about women at a sporting event when there's that long bathroom line and you just walk up to the front and jump the line. We don't do that in America. You wait your turn. You wait in line. I've worked at the State Department for 12 years. We have a very long line of people who want visas and legal immigration. I bet you there's people in this room that have been waiting for years to get their green card, waiting for years to get the next step, doing everything legally. And yet, you turn on the television and you see an outright invasion at our border. Let me tell you one thing. The European Union today is weaker than what it was 5 years ago. And the reason why is when the Germans decided to allow an invasion of migrants into Europe without vetting people and without a legal process, the British said, we're out of here. We're not going to participate in the EU. They launched Brexit. The British left the EU because of immigration, because Chancellor Merkel did not put together a plan where you could legally come in. It was chaos. It was an invasion. The EU became weaker and smaller because they didn't have a plan of action. You look at what's happening in the United States, and we've got pissed off people in Texas, Arizona, and California. People watching the border just get run over. An invasion. Now, some of this is our fault. Because 10 years ago, when the Democrats put a lipstick on a pig and decided to call it a sanctuary city, everybody thought, oh, what a nice name. What a nice name, sanctuary cities. Do you know what that you're getting sanctuary for? Breaking the immigration laws of the United States. I'm sorry, but a sanctuary city is a terrible concept. What's next? Sanctuary from drunk driving? Sanctuary from committing any crime and getting off scot-free? Well, that's called California right now. The reality is, we as conservatives, we as Republicans who love this country, have got to start speaking up. You can't let these universities take over and indoctrinate our children. You can't let sanctuary cities go on. That is an illegal act. You don't get to break our laws and get protection from cities and states. Go after it and end it. Speak up. Don't be afraid of being canceled, because I am convinced, after traveling this whole country, that we are the silent majority.
Yes.
We have never had more working class, minorities, and first and second generation Americans joining the Republican Party than ever before. We are stronger when we take on the elites. And I get it, there's a whole bunch of Republicans who are mad about it. There's a whole bunch of elites who just want us to continue playing nice because they get away with a whole bunch. Their lives are a lot better when we just try to cut taxes for the wealthy. Well, that's not the game anymore. We have to fight to save this country. And let me finish with this before I take some questions. The greatest honor of my life was being the U.S. Ambassador to Germany. I represented you, I represented President Trump. It was an amazing honor for me to have the title of a spokesman for the United States over in a foreign country. But I got to take my then 93-year-old grandfather as the U.S. Ambassador to Germany. I got to take him to Normandy. And what I should say is, I got to take him back to Normandy. Because Grandpa Lacey, when he was 18, stormed the beaches of Normandy. And if you can imagine the U.S. Ambassador to Germany walking with his grandfather through the American cemetery, talking about what just happened down there. This little kid from Michigan was living out an amazing dream. As I heard my grandfather say very clearly, he had to do it. He had to board a ship at the age of 18 and leave Marion, Ohio to go to France. And when you ask him and you say, Grandpa Lacey, why did you do it? Knowing full well how many people were going to come out of those ships and storm the beach and be killed. Why did you do it? And he very clearly said to me, because the Nazis were coming to Marion, Ohio. He was clear-eyed about the fight. He knew that he had to sacrifice for this country so that people can go on TikTok and feel free to say anything they want, so that people can go on social media and do and say anything they want, so that you can start a business without having government intervention, so that you can marry who you want, so that you can have freedoms and do whatever you wanted. Grandpa Lacey boarded a ship and went over to defeat Nazi Germany. I fear that we have raised a generation of people who don't know how to sacrifice. They don't know how to sacrifice for themselves or their country or their family. This great president from California, where I live, warned us. Ronald Reagan said every single generation will eventually have to fight for their freedom. There's a whole bunch of people in this room who already know what it's like to fight for freedom. We have veterans who have sacrificed a lot to make sure that our kids get to go on social media and be and say anything that they want. But I wonder if the current generation could even storm Facebook. Could they stand up and say, I love this country, and I love capitalism, and I love the rule of law, can they do it? Because I'm telling you, we let 1 million people legally into this country, but there's 100 million people who want to live here. If you don't think that this is the greatest country in the history of the world, get a passport and travel. Go to another country and see what's happening. Because there's 100 million people that are going to come through that southern border if we continue to let it happen. And we will not have a country just like Europe saw. Brexit happened. Could we break apart because of the immigration issue? You bet your bottom dollar we could. There are people that angry about what's happening. So I hope, if you're a young person here tonight, that you understand what's at stake. I hope if you're an older person, that you understand that you've got to tell the stories of America to your children and your grandchildren. You're going to have to drag people out to the polls this November because I fear we may have one election left. Most great civilizations have lasted roughly 250 years. And we are coming up on that point. You are not promised to be the greatest country in the history of the world forever. You must sacrifice. You must dig deep. And I'll finish with this before we take questions. Gone is the day. Gone is the day that you get to sit here and listen to some great speeches and hear from our great Senator Ron Johnson. Gone is the day that you get to sit and listen and then stand up and walk out to your car and say, I hope someone else does something. You have to ask yourself, what are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing next week? You have to sacrifice. You have to say to yourself every single morning until November, what did I do today to save this country? What did I do? How many people am I bringing to the polls? How many people am I encouraging to take their ballot? You can ballot harvest in Wisconsin. You know what that means? It means stand up on your block and go and collect ballots from every single person on your street who's a Republican.
Yeah.
Go collect ballots. Be an army. Because honestly, this could be our last chance. If we don't work to save America, I fear that America could be lost and that we would break away. It's that crucial. So when you leave here today, ask yourself, tomorrow morning when you wake up, what did I do today to storm the beaches? What did I do to ensure that we remain the greatest country in the history of the world? Thank you very much.
USA. Okay, so we're going to take a couple questions for Ambassador Grenell.
Not only as American people, but President Trump himself was our special guest, George Papadopoulos. He has his book here, Deep State Target, and he will be kind enough to sign those for you. But I would like to bring him on so he can tell a little bit about his story and how Ambassador Richard Grenell actually played a key role in rescuing some of this, because some of us have spent time in intelligence agencies, we understand how this works, and them being weaponized against our people and against our president is the first thing that needs to change in this country. So, George Papadopoulos.
Hello, Milwaukee. I'm a Chicago boy by heart. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing when I'm in these type of crowds, but we're all Midwest. We love our country, and we love this weather. Sorry, Rick. It's just an incredible privilege to be here today, and I just want to thank my dear friend Olga. I want to thank the Serbian-American community, the Milwaukee GOP, David, and everybody who's in this room, because what I have to say, what everybody has to say, if you're not in this room, it really doesn't matter. So thank you all for even being here. And I just want to see a set of hands. Who heard of the recent story that the CIA, along with our allies, was at the center of the Russian collusion hoax? Who actually saw that story? So some people in this room. Now, why did I want to know which one of you people in this room actually heard about this story is because of the mainstream media's ability to suppress these critical stories which are impacting our country, not only in the past, but most importantly, today. I was an idealistic man in my late 20s. I just was in an incredibly cushy job in Washington, D.C. I know Rick hates Washington, and I started to hate Washington too, because I was dealing with a lot of these people who just were not the future of America. A lot of my ex-colleagues were ex-Bush officials, George H.W. Bush officials, Reagan officials, some of the architects of the very popular Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the ones that destroyed our country's prestige and cost trillions of dollars and thousands of lives. And I looked around at that presidential election season in 2015, and I said to myself, I'm not going to work with Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, or any of these type of establishment people. I saw Ben Carson initially. Who likes Ben Carson here? I worked on Ben Carson's campaign initially. He drops out. That endorsement of Trump, I think, tilted the balance of power. Trump wins the nomination, becomes president of the United States of America. And what happens? Our country is intentionally sabotaged by the intelligence community. We didn't have individuals like Rick Grenell leading that agency at that time. We had people like Brennan in the past, Comey at the FBI, that put our country through hell and back simply for a political agenda, and none of it was true. And that's something that I wholeheartedly am grateful for people like Rick Grenell for declassifying and getting this information to the American public, because not only was it a hoax, but if it wasn't for Rick Grenell and other patriotic Americans, especially President Trump, to declassify this information, our history would have been rewritten. I believe President Trump would have been a 6-month president who would have likely been overturned, impeached, and likely convicted on bogus charges, the way that they went after me, the way that they're going after President Trump today, the way that they went after Flynn, Manafort, Roger Stone, and now thousands of patriotic Americans who wanted to address their grievances on January 6th. So there's an entire apparatus that has been weaponized, not only against private citizens like myself, you all, but the President of the United States today. And this is something that is not sustainable. That is why I am very vocal about exposing what happened, not only in 2016, but how it impacts today, and Rick Grenell as well. And I just want to thank you once again for being here. Olga, thank you once again for hosting and having me as a